Hello, I'm Kimberly, and welcome to the weekend edition of the Native News Update. It's Friday, May 18th, and many of the stories you hear here can be found at IndianCountryNews.com. And here's the news for the day from the Associated Press and other Native news sources. Brazilian authorities have admitted to the Amazon Awa, Earth's most threatened tribe, are outnumbered 10-1 in just one of their reserves. Survival International, a leading advocate for the tribal people's rights worldwide, said officials admitted the scale of emergency after receiving over 20,000 messages of protest following the launch of its drive to save the Awa from imminent extinction late last month. It pointed to a Brazilian government survey estimating there could be up to 4,500 invaders, ranchers, loggers, and settlers occupying just one of the 4 territories inhabited by the Awa, whose total population stands at no more than 450. Last month, the rights group launched a major campaign spearheaded by Britain's Oscar-winning actor Colin Firth to focus world attention on the plight of the Awa, saying they were threatened with genocide and extinction. Survival said the new head of Brazil's National Indian Foundation, Marta Azevedo, confirmed that the threat to the Awa was now her agency's top priority. 8 Oregon high schools will have to retire their Native American mascots after the Board of Education voted 5-1 on May 17th to prohibit them, giving the state some of the nation's toughest restrictions on Native American mascots, nicknames, and logos. The schools have 5 years to comply with the order or risk losing their state funding. Another 7 high schools identified as the Warriors will be allowed to keep their nickname, but will have to change mascots or graphics that depict Native Americans. An unknown number of elementary and middle schools also will be affected. Since the 1970s, more than 600 high schools and college teams across the country have done away with their Native American nicknames, including 20 in Oregon. Thanks to a final piece of grant funding awarded through partnership funds from American Rivers and the NOAA Restoration Center, Salmon and Steelhead will soon be able to swim into the upper reaches of Hostler Creek, a tributary to the Trinity River located on the Hoopa Valley Reservation in Northern California. Currently, an artificial waterfall that once served as part of an irrigation diversion limits fish access to just 1 mile of Hostler Creek. As a result, salmon and steelhead are cut off from high-quality spawning and rearing habitat further upstream, just beyond reach. This funding was matched by an award made by the Pacific Coast Salmon Recovery Fund through the Klamath River Intertribal Fish and Water Commission. The project will be implemented during August and September of this year and is anticipated to restore an additional 2 to 3 miles of fish habitat to Hostler Creek. The Cherokee Nation Foundation gave over $300,000 that will be used to establish a $1 million endowment for Cherokee students attending the University of Tulsa in Oklahoma. Officials announced that the gift was amplified through a 2-to-1 matching program at the university to create the endowment. The scholarship will be awarded to Cherokee Nation students who show exemplary leadership qualities in their communities and will use their education to serve their tribe. Students can use the money to pay for books, housing expenses, fees, tuition, and other academic expenses. Officials say the funds were part of an estate donation made to the Tribal Foundation, honoring member Martha Redis. May 26 marks the 90th anniversary of the unveiling of the memorial in Stanley Park to Pauline Johnson, a famous poet, an early feminist, and a First Nations advocate. Johnson is the only known person to be buried legitimately in Stanley Park since it became a park in 1886 in Vancouver, British Columbia. Johnson is perhaps most famous for her work, The Legend of Vancouver, a collection of Coast Salish legends about the area's people and geography. Johnson was born in Brantford, Ontario in 1861. Her mother was white and her father was a Mohawk chief of the Six Nations. She was educated by her mother in Western literature and wrote poetry from an early age. She made a name for herself performing and publishing her poetry in Ontario before moving to Vancouver in 1909. Johnson was eventually diagnosed with breast cancer and passed away in March of 1913. It has been said that when she died, the day of her funeral was declared a civic holiday, and there were photos of thousands of people watching her funeral procession. And on May 29th, Bobby Bullet St. Germain will release an updated rendition of the popular single Lac du Flambeau Reservation, which was originally released back in 1981. The song will be sold as a digital download on iTunes and Rhapsody It will also be included as a track on his new upcoming album, Crooked Tear, to be released later this year. A video that is to accompany the release of Lac du Flambeau Reservation is currently in production and is scheduled to be released within a few days of the single. For more information, you can visit bobbybullet.com. And that's another roundup of news from Indian Country on this edition of the Native News Update. I'd like to thank you for joining me and have a grand day.